Hey everyone, and welcome back to Episode Club. Today we are going to be talking Season 3, Episode 10, Mysha. And joining me today, as always, for these podcast editions is Johnny B. Crazy, aka Johnny B. Baelish. How are you doing today, Johnny?
Thank you so much for having me, Sasa. Misa. Right, I'm doing okay. Can't complain. Talking about another Game of Thrones episode, so life's not too bad. Good episode here. Season finale for season 3, right?
Yeah. It starts pretty much at the end of the last episode, which was the Red Wedding, and we see why this episode's called Mysha in the very end, but let's get started, I guess, because it's a jam-packed episode. So we see the events of the Red Wedding continue with the Frey men killing the remaining Northerners, and this is mostly from a perspective of Roose Bolton. So what do you think about this sort of them really showing how much not only did they stop after the killing of Robb and Catelyn, but to basically massacre the entire Northern Army?
Well, yeah, they had to massacre for the most part anyone there. They didn't want anyone leaving. To that point, the Blackfish got away, and word still got out, but Roose is a very measured and calculated man. I would think that he wasn't necessarily the person that oversaw this. As we see later in the episode, more Walder Frey overlooked this. I don't know how, it's hard to tell how much Roose disagrees with Walder Frey, right? But it seems that he's not quite satisfied with how it went, even though he didn't have any problems stabbing Talissa. Or did he stab Talissa? Is that who he stabbed?
No, it's Black
Oh no, it's
Wall.
Robb. It was Robb. He stabbed
It's
Robb. My bad.
yeah, it's Lothar Frey that is the one that stabs Talissa. But yeah, he had no problems with killing Robb, but still, yeah, the point is still there.
Yeah, he has to know to that point, right? He was upset about the Blackfish escaping too. So yeah, I don't think he had much to do with it, but Walder Frey is trying to burn everything. This is his vengeance for his whole life of being looked down upon, I guess you could say, but it's his own damn fault. He was an asshole as a kid too. So I think we talked about that last Thursday.
Yeah, and it kind of just shows later on how much like we're talking about how they even talk about it with Tyrion and Tywin about Frey and how he actually pretty much is a brave man that's not Frey, but it's not the most comfortable situation that we kind of are left into, because after this we see Arya, and she is seeing Robb's body, and
Nursing a concussion, I might add.
yeah, while nursing concussion, she sees Robb's dead body with Grey Wind's head has now been somewhat attached to his body, which brings credence to what do they kind of do with Robb's head? Do they kind of keep it in River Run, or they just throw it away? I'm assuming because it's such a, I guess, valued commodity, that they do something important with it, but they obviously don't go into it in the show, which I'm kind of surprised about. But when you think about this whole Arya Hound seeing Robb and such.
I can't remember. I want to say Joffrey does try to do something weird with it, like in the show, but gets denied, and I think it ends up getting. Does the remains ever get back to Winterfell? I can't remember either. Goodness gracious. I gotta catch up on my reread really fast.
I don't know. I think I think even Ned's bones are still like in the Riverland somewhere. I think because they never, I don't think, reached their final resting place. I believe. I think probably in the show they probably had Catelyn send them to Winterfell, but at that point, Winterfell was being occupied by the Greyjoys, so it's a um, situation. So I don't think their
So
bones
you're
are there.
saying Ned's bones are coming back as a white in season 8?
Yeah.
Confirmed here now.
If they're dismembered, if they're all dismembered, then who knows? But you can't really bring something back without a head, though, like that. Like we've never seen a headless white though before.
Oh, the hand still works, and we had the whole skeleton, but yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. Something to ponder over. I think,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, if the hand still works, though, I would guess there would be a headless body running around if you chop the head off. You might
Mm-hmm.
not be able to see anything, but I don't
It
know. They
just
seem to
run.
have went straight super zombie in season 7, so.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's something that, but
Oh, if you want me to touch on Arya, I didn't even
yeah.
touch on that. But the fact that she has to see Rob like this is just brutal. Yeah, she didn't see Ned's head get chopped off, but if I'm not mistaken, she saw his head rolling on the ground. Uh,
In the book, yeah, I don't think in the show because
not no
Yoren
shit.
Yoren protected her from that.
But this is just horrifying, and it's immediately recognizable. There's no question to her who that is. She wouldn't even upon waking up with a concussion, as she is at that moment. She would know instantly just from the direwolf head that that's Grey Wind. There's only 5 in the entire realm, right? Or 6, and now it's down to Nymeria and Ghost and Shaggy Dog and Summer, right? We got 4 left.
Mm-hmm. At this point, yes.
Hashtag free Nymeria, hashtag free Ghost season 8. I'll just throw that out there. Go ahead.
Yeah. It's when you first watch this, you're like, oh my god, like what do they do? Like they had to obviously do this, but it's like why would they like do that to that character, especially to Arya? Um and even like it's for her, yeah, it's not like knowing that both like two important men in her life have now had their heads chopped off. So it's like, but yeah, it's traumatizing, and the fact that the hound's there to kind of keep her safe is a good thing in a sense, and it's kind of continues his protective streak over the Stark girls. Um,
Headless, without a face. Hmm.
mhm.
Ariel Inlet, headless? No. Or
One,
at least, yeah, I still think she's got to go back to the House of Black and White, or else she gonna die.
yeah.
Or she gonna flee somewhere. Whatever. I ain't gonna get into this again.
If you haven't, check out Johnny's video about Arya and where she's going. It's really good.
Or just any live streams. I usually rant about it.
Yeah, or any of the previous streams on either mine or on his channel. Um, and Sansa and Tyrion are walking through the gardens, and that now Tyrion has a sort of list of people, in a sense, that he could have Varys be his informant about. But Santa suggests to give Sheepshift his bed, and Tyrion's surprised that someone of her position and her, I guess, ladylikeness would suggest this before there is that meeting of the small council where Tyrion finds out about what has happened to Robb and Cat and the Northern Army. So, what do you think about
We
this?
only know about the sheep shift because of Arya did it to Sansa. So, Sansa learning. It's kind of a fun, I guess you could say, a euphemism for her learning slowly. You know, she's using something that was done to her in the past to her advantage now, or at least to have fun. And in a light way, I think it shows her progression and kind of a little insight into her thought process, which we don't get much of until later in the seasons. And Tyrion, oh, what's the dude's name? I can't remember
Lord
now.
Desmond Sarsfield, or Sir
Craig
Desmond
Hall.
Sarsfield, and the Desmond Craycore. Sarsfield and Craycore are there,
Oh, I thought it was Craig
or,
Hall. Um,
or
yeah.
however you want to pronounce it. All these
Uh,
names are crazy, anyways. So go ahead.
Either ways, it's funny that he memorizes names like this so he can, it shows that Tyrion still struggles with his appearance, with his look upon the world. He knows how people see him, and he has to take that into account for every single decision he makes. And then you have Shay following him like a shadow stalker, which I know it's her job, but just the way she looks. If anybody, any of the little birds, just watch that group of people, you could tell Shay has something going on, just by the way she's carrying herself. I don't know. I won't get into going crazy on Shay right now. Save it for later.
Yeah, but yeah, you can see that like the passerbyers must know that there's something that's going on between um Shay and Tyrion, because yes, that she's Sansa's handmaiden, but there must be something that's different between that, because I don't feel like usually the handmaiden follows the couple usually around, being like a third wheel almost, especially
Usually it's
during.
not so close, I would think. If they are, they're supposed to kind of stay, kind of be seen but not heard. But she's being seen and heard with her presence, right? You can be heard without saying a word. Good point.
Yeah, like she'd be either farther behind, and especially too since it's been about 2 episodes, so maybe about a month ish, maybe since they've been married. That you would think that she would have left them, like, or had more of a distance, but Shay's a controlling little bitch, so
Oh
she
my
wants to
goodness.
be
Oh, we'll
Tyrion.
talk about the handhold heard round the world later. Um, is that next episode or this one? I can't remember.
Which one? The
Where she goes crazy over like she just gets infuriated when Tyrion grabs Sansa's hand. Is that this episode?
It's the next
Oh,
one,
see?
I think. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, because it's like she has to eat food. That
Either way, yeah. You won't want to miss my rant on that one, so tune in for the next podcast.
Yeah, which will probably be out after this one. Um, but yeah, it's funny how she goes. It's like sheep shift, and then he's like, Lady Sansa, and she's like, that's the bold word for dung. Like she, like, even though she could have said the dung instead of sheep shift, she still has some ladylike tendencies, but she knows she can kind of break those down almost with Tyrion a little bit. Um, the next scene being Tywin and Tyrion, Joffrey and Cersei and Pycelle, and they're basically talking about the change in the North in terms of who has power. Um, so, what do you
Yeah,
think about
I mean, Rosalind called a fine fresh trout or some crap and got 2 wolf pelts for her wedding gift. Joffrey is so happy and smug and petulant, and Tyrion's throwing out hard truths, and Joffrey just throws a temper tantrum. The funny thing is, you can see Cersei here just so utterly embarrassed, but there's nothing she can do. You know, it, Tywin has to check Joffrey repeatedly. Maybe I'll teach you one day. Gives the whole "I am the king" uh, thing again, which Tywin makes the perfect point. I mean, if you have to say that, you're not the king. You're not in any true power. Anyways, man, Jack Gleason kills me here. Um, but it's just a great scene. I'll let you pick up for a second.
Yeah, like this scene really shows even how basically Tyrion can kind of say whatever he sort of wants and get away with it in a sense. Um,
Everyone's mind to torment, huh?
mhm. And like the whole perhaps you should speak to me more softly than monsters are dangerous and just now kings are dying like flies. Like this kind of sets up the episode for yep season 4 episode 2 where people all suspect that it's Tyrion that is the murderer of Joffrey, especially with these kind of scenes like this. But the fact that he's kind of schooled by his own uncle is kind of funny. And even Varys is like, you cannot give Rob's head to Sansa because she is your aunt by marriage. And the Cersei tries to defend his like action, and she's like, no, like I mean what I say. And just Tywin just kind of shuts him down by saying, any man who must say I am the king is no true king.
Well, think on this. How bad Joffrey is, how bad Tywin is, how bad Cersei is. Even that was too much for them. And this is definitely waxing prophetic for Arya serving the prey pie. What does that make Arya at this point? Yes, she got her revenge. Yes, Walder Frey deserved to die, but the way she did it, now you can say, oh, Walder Frey did it that way, but still, we have the whole story of the rat cook and how they were cursed. Is this going to come back to bite Arya? This just makes me think of it here. You know, you got the worst people in Westeros not even wanting to do that, like saying, hey, no. Um, it's a tough thing. Whew, yeah. Arya's definitely Dark Sister. That's what I love about her, though, the complex nature of that character. Sorry, Arya rant.
No, it's okay. And it's funny too how Tywin's like, can you give Miss Pycelle, can you give Joffrey essence of nightshade to help him sleep? And he's like, I'm not tired. And it's just like when a toddler is like, I'm not tired, I'm not tired. And it's like, but you will be soon, um, kind of things. And
Eat your vegetables and go to bed, Joffrey.
mhm. And Tyrion, even when he's like, "You just sent the most powerful man to bed. You have sent the most powerful man to in Westeros to bed without his supper." And Tywin goes, "You really are a fool if you think he's the most powerful man in Westeros."
Well, also, too, you got to think, was Tywin more in control than Robert Baratheon in a sense? It seemed like he had a little bit of control, but was left out somewhat. Felt free after Robert died to come to King's Landing. Yeah, makes you kind of wonder how much, because Cersei did have all the power there and she was the one wielding it. Robert was just sitting back, pretending shit wasn't happening, not seeing. Damn, I keep dropping Arya bombs. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
But, she, yeah, you could argue that the Lannisters were the most powerful family before Robert even died. They also, I mean, didn't the crown owe them like 3 million or something?
Yeah,
Or 1 million?
the crown was about 6 million in debt, and they owed like 3 million to golden dragons to uh Tywin Lannister or something, like some random thing like that, and then like 2 million to the Iron Bank of Bravos, like something like that. It's in Ned's first scene at the small council where they bring that up. So but yeah, I most definitely think like out of the entire show, people think, oh, the Targaryens were the most powerful family in Westeros. Yeah, sure, for a time until they all decided to die out, and then really, I think probably with Tytos um, being the Lord of Casterly Rock, like that's when really the power of House Lannister really kind of came into grasp, I guess, because they did have all the gold. Uh,
Yeah, and they were more like glorified gold miners, you could say. Uh, they never really had much going on in King's Landing, back through history until you get closer to this timeline. Like back in farther history, they're looked on as slightly suspicious sometimes. They did help a few Targaryens, but when they did, they seemed very interested in the eggs. So, we don't have a lot there. We got the story of Land the Clever and how they came to be, but we do know that the mines dried up. So, when the mines dried up, what do? You have to play the Game of Thrones a little more because you don't have that natural resource. So, I guess good thing Tywin was born.
yeah, and as we see when Two Swords shows up, that the House Lannister never had even a bastard Valyrian steel sword up until ice is broken down into Two Swords. So you would think that a powerful house as powerful as the Lannisters, that they would have had maybe a Valyrian steel sword, but they weren't as powerful then. But now, at that point, they have two, so it makes you wonder. Um,
Yeah, it also shows you how rare they are and how much value people put on them because a lot of people won't sell them for any price. An
mm,
ancestral blade. Um,
um,
what
yeah,
about Tyrion, Sansa babies? It's mentioned a few times. You think Tyrion and Sansa are having a baby? Bam chicka wow wow, season 8. Come on. Tyrion
no,
San, whatever you want to call
I, I, uh, I
it.
don't
Figure.
think so. But in this scene, it talks about how killing what is more noble, killing 10,000 men in battle or a dozen at dinner. Well, not really. Tywin, it's not really only just a dozen people that
At
were
least
murdered.
1,000, it seemed like. But go ahead.
Yeah, it's like at least been about 1,000 because Rob had what, maybe like 8,000 soldiers. So
Maybe. Can't remember how sparse it had got, and mm, I
that
can't
was with
remember
the
which houses.
Karstarks. So he probably had maybe about 4,000 men, maybe.
And half
So,
those are maybe phrase, I think. I think the phrase did
mhm.
send a lot of men, especially in the books. Um, Kira, but yeah, I
Mhm.
think the phrase did send a bunch of men. Then you have the only real men being Rob's Norsemen left, and possibly some of the Umbers. Mm,
I
might not be
thought they,
much else after that.
I thought they said that the
Oh
Umbers
yeah, they left
marched
after.
home with the after the Karstark
Yeah,
After Torm
that's it.
Karstark was murdered. So they probably had probably about 1,000 to 1,500 men, maybe.
Yeah,
So yeah, there's probably only like a small fraction left. So, but
you can
it's
tell Tylen's not a superstitious man either.
mhm. And the whole thing he wouldn't have done it without certain assurances, but he's like he got them from me. It's like, yeah, if you're gonna get assurance on anything, you'd probably want to get it from Tywin Lannister about your survival over somebody else's, even if your own survival is kind of comes into question later.
Are you in fear for your life? Do you have gold? Do you have a possible pawn in the Game of Thrones? Contact Tywin Lannister 1-888-douche.com. Yes, I know it's a phone number and a web address at the same time. Thank you.
But
Sorry. She's
um,
like, what's going on, Johnny?
no, it's funny. And finding out that her parents, or not her parents, her brother and her mother have been murdered. She doesn't say anything at all, um, but just look out the window and sob,
I, I
which is a
think
thing, which is a common thing she does between seasons uh, 2 and 4, is crying out a window or at something.
Well, I think sometimes too, um, saying things can make you more upset, especially when she's trying to put up her shield a little bit, even though she's visibly upset. But honestly, at that point, you would want to physically break down and just release it. And she also doesn't, probably doesn't want to say the wrong thing. Um, trying to keep her mouth, if you can't say nothing nice, don't say nothing at all. And I think she has the self awareness in the situation to try and survive. Uh, but that goes back to we don't get really much into the thought process of Sansa, but that's what I take from it. And in the books, you get a lot more of that, her thinking things out.
Mm-hmm. Which, to her credit, I feel like Sophie does a pretty good job for just majority of her scenes in the books being internal monologues and then having to portray them outward. But yeah, it's
I
sad
agree.
because um, before this, I forgot Tyrion mentions like you think that now that I'm gonna go tell her that her brother and mother are dead, that she's just gonna want to have sex with me now. Like, um, it's he fails. Like even though he is a Lannister and the lowest of the Lannisters, he does feel for his wife and the fact that she lost her mother and her brother, and she's kind of alone in the world because Arya's nowhere to be found. John's at the wall. Her brothers are presumed to be dead. So she has technically no one besides Tyrion and Shay in her corner.
She's a little bird in a cage.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, it's how I see her. And I agree with your points about Sophie Turner and how she portrays it. And yeah, so much inner monologue. But she has to have it in the books or else she wouldn't be able to talk without being killed. Um, yeah, Tywin suggesting rape. Ugh. There's a lot of disgusting things in that one scene. Disgusting as far as vile things that you have to not have to do, but that they think they have to do in order to maintain power. Um, and we see how they do it through fear. Um, Complete opposite of how John does it, and a complete mixture of how Danny does it. Danny uses fear, and Danny also uses the love of the people at different varying times. It just seemingly depends on her mood. Um, but yeah, we'll get into that.
Crew and pretty much how they've found a place to stay for the night. And then
Hodor.
Hodor! And that there is now the rat cook. Bran tells the story of the rat cook in this. And uh, yeah, what do you feel about the story of the rat cook and how it's kind of foreshadowing?
Oh, the rat cook's very reminiscent of what happened with the Frey pie, but also what happened at the Red Wedding. And I'm trying to think, somewhat happened somewhere else. But either way, the rat cook was cursed because, killed someone under their own roof and fed them their sons, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right?
It
And
yeah,
this person was forever cursed to basically live in darkness and haunt the night for it. And you could say this goes to Arya. She will forever live in darkness, possibly in the Hall of Faces or as a faceless person. I know people don't like that. They want her to just end up being wild and free, which would be awesome, but I don't think it's happening. It doesn't seem to fit her character. If they do go that route, it's going to be offline with how everything falls with, just how the House of Black and White works. Um, but maybe we'll find out their main plan at the end of this because they are weaved in and out through this whole story. Um, Going back to Bran, he's kind of getting a taste of fear here still. He's still a kid, which is good to see, especially knowing what Bran becomes later. And he's starting to realize now, well, what he's got to do and kind of the scope of it is starting to come up on him. And this story really, I think, embodies him becoming a man and kind of shedding his childhood away, and also just becoming something different later. And I guess I won't rant anymore about it for now.
No, it's okay. Yeah, the story of the rat cook and the fact that it's Bran that kind of explained what it is, because it is in the lore. Um, it's kind of it is pretty foreshadowing that it's maybe Arya and that she may, like you said, be cursed. Because even though it wasn't a guest beneath her own roof, um, it's just the fact that she killed somebody and made a son into a pie. So there could be something to that. And this, and then the whole Hodor down the well. And he goes, don't, Hodor. It's like the thing of having to kind of mangle uh, someone or wrangle someone who is like just wants to do their own thing, but also not want to be heard at the same time. There's like more of Bran and the crew after, but the in between scene with this is Bruce Bolton and Walder Frey discuss um, what has now, like, to talk about Robb and how Robb was followed around the north with Roose, and that now Frey has to take a new young bride and make that next marriage arrangement. And
Yeah.
we get Ramsay's name drop in this.
Well, this is when you first find out about Ramsay, right? If you haven't read the books, then you find out who the hell is torturing Theon. Also, Roose looks like at this point, like, oh shit, I gotta clean up this fucking mess. You know, like, I gotta clean up this sloppy bullshit that people are gonna not be happy about in the North. He's inherited the North. They're prickly people. Walder Frey is the new Lord of, whatever.
Lord of the Riverlands.
Yeah, the Riverlands. And he just, he couldn't be more humble about it, right? The late Walder Frey. Oh my gosh, he portrays him so well. It's hard to not hate the man. Look at that pimp cup he's got. It's killing me here. He just needs a pinky ring, and he's doing it. This man is like the ultimate womanizer. Plus, he's just a snake in the grass. He's that person that's just so dirty and grimy. He won't get any respect, but you don't want to cross the man because he's willing to do anything, and I mean anything, to get back at you. And you see that here. And I don't know why I rant so long.
No, it's okay. Yeah, it's just funny how he's like, my son Ramsay rooted Theon out of the north, and Walder, he's like, would you want to go to Winterfell now? Is that where you're gonna like live now? And he's like, maybe someday. And it's kind of funny, but yeah, the dialogue that David Bradley kind of has, they write him very well, and how we know that Edmure had spent his wedding night in a dungeon after he had done the duty that he is supposed to, um, and we kind of catch up back with Edmure in season 6, so it's kind of a we get 3 years without Edmure. This is probably when he started to do Outlander, which is one of his more famous TV shows.
And you're coming back as Lady Stoneheart in season 8.
Yeah. That would be funny if it's like the Lord Stoneheart instead of Lady Stoneheart. And yeah, the how he feels like how he's always slighted, but John Aaron wasn't slighted when he had to marry Lysa Tully. So he feels like he is kind of almost has like a double standard put on his head. And it's which is kind of weird if you think about it. It's like, yeah, Walder Frey may be 70s, 80s at this point, because of having children and then great grandchildren, and I think one great granddaughter. So he's like, ooh, I can do whatever I want, pretty
I
much.
think he's 90.
Mm.
Could be mistaken, but think his 90th birthday was the one they were talking about them not coming to, and he's like, I hope I live 10 more years, or something about living to 100. But could be mistaken on that. But yeah, he's really old. Either way, the fact that he can still have a wife is mystifying to me. I want to know what kind of herbs he's taking.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and try and get wives pregnant too, unless they like last 5 minutes and it's like a one and done. But the poor girls that have to marry that old man, it's just, it's like,
Craster or Walter Frey?
I know,
That's a
right?
hell of a choice.
That should be almost another stream that we talk about who is the worst old man and creepy old man in Westeros, Walder Frey or Craster. Theon, a new name, and it happens to be Reek, which is obviously a different um, character in the book because it's a completely different person. It's not two people meshed together. Um, but yeah, what did you think about how the
Yeah, I mean, in the book, you had an original Reek, which Ramsay had as a pet that kind of looked like him. So if I think he heard about an assassination attempt on him and swapped himself with the Reek and took on the Reek persona. Then when he comes to Winterfell, he basically tricks Theon there in the books. Here they just kind of force the Reek upon you without any backdrop. It's okay, but you kind of don't understand what the hell Ramsay's doing until later. You don't understand that he's making a toy, that he's how much he's actually manipulating him until later. I don't. They may have could have done it differently. I think it was done well. Looking back on it, maybe I would have liked it a little different, but cinematically, yeah, they didn't have to bring in another Reek, just mainly because they're not going to bring in all this other stuff. We barely get direwolf, so luckily we got one Reek. But yeah, he's not so low as to eat the weenie he cut off, I guess. Get to
no,
that later. I don't know how much I have to say about it. This is pretty just jacked up.
it's a short scene and it's not Theon's appendage. It's a pork sausage, but it this is the scene where we get that famous Diggle um GIF if you haven't seen it. Or where have you been? Because if you ever look up Game of Thrones GIFs on any social media, you usually will see that one. And he's like, what am I, an animal? And also the idea of phantom limbs. And like, if you think about something like in that, like, if you think about naked girls, will you ever get an itch or something like that? So it's kind of like toying around with what it's like to kind of have a disability in a sense, or be maimed a little bit. But it's funny because it's classic Ramsay.
Yeah,
And
it's full like, yeah, just manip. Yeah, mental manipulation at its worst or finest, or however the hell you want to look at it. It's torturous, I say. But this picture's killing me. But Ramsay is understandably the way he is. The fact that you're like, oh, that's 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 Bruce Bolton's bastard. Oh, it all makes sense now. Uh, and if you're just a show watcher, it makes you wonder how much Roose has to do with this torture. Looking forward, he knows nothing of this. He thought, just kill Theon, get done with it. Roose is a practical man. I would say he's almost like Stannis, but even colder, if that makes sense. More robotic Stannis. That doesn't a Stannis without a different set of honor. The whole, you know, underground type of honor. The in the shadows. I don't know. I'm just mumbling here.
yeah,
Save me, Sasa.
well, also the Bruce also thinks that the Greyjoys are
Treasonous horse.
compared to Stannis, and I don't think Stannis would really say that. So, or if he does, he just says it in in Privet. Um, there's a whole. This is where we get Ramsey, Theon's Reek persona really displayed, and yeah. So, like we said, Theon is now in his Reek stage of his character. The next scene is Bran is woken up, and we find out that Sam and Gilly have now arrived to pretty much where they are staying, and they have this whole conversation about knowing who John is, that John is Bran's brother, and if going beyond the wall is the best idea for Bran.
Yeah, it's seemingly Bran is rushing right into it with the enthusiasm of a child, which harkens back to whether or not the children in Bloodraven are really good and what their end means are. If you do read the book, they seem to be slightly manipulating him and telling him what he wants to hear rather than the whole truth. We see a little bit of that here in the show as well, because when Bran, just one example is when Bran gets touched. Bloodraven already knew he was going to get touched, already knew this was going to happen, just didn't know the exact moment. So he's not telling Bran what he needs to know. I think one of the key things he's hiding from Bran is that he's possibly the Night King, somehow connected. Don't really like it, but man, why do they make them look exactly identical is what bothers me. It looks, you put little blue on Bran's face and some horns, and he's just straight up the Night King.
Yeah, it's like it's Photoshop at its finest. Yeah, the one funny thing about this is like I know a ghost, know a direwolf when I've seen one. I've been around ghosts so much, and he's like, I've heard about Hodor. It's like, oh, why didn't we get like a 5-second scene of John talking about Hodor and what he would have said about Hodor? Like, come on, give the man his due.
That's true. John never really got to talk about Hodor, did he?
No, he never talks about Hodor to John to Sam. So it'd have been funny if they had to talk, if they got like it was like a minute scene of him being like, oh, this is like he's taking care of my brother and all of that stuff. Even after like we know that there's a few different mispasses that Bran has with John and like
Yeah.
Sam. So
Well, the funny thing too is Sam just killed a White Walker, but Mira just basically beat the hell out of him without touching him when he comes out. He's just
she's like, ah! And she like goes after him with the spear.
it's really beautiful. He's a lover, not a fighter, but he will defend his own for his love. You could go with a whole route where you could say Gilly is Nisa Nisa, Sam is what do
Azor
you want to
Ahai.
call it? Azor Ahai, and Lightbringer's Heartsbane. But then where do you go with that as well? I think it's meant to symbolize a bunch of different people. I don't think it's one person. My opinion. It usually doesn't end up ultimately being this one person with Germ. Any other writing, I might go with the one person, but I feel like I don't know. It just fits so many people, but that also could just be throwing us off to what the actual real Azor Ahai is. But I do think it's going to be not obvious. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever. I'm rambling again. Save me.
Totally. So the next scene that we get is Balon and Yara slash Asha, um, or Asha, whatever you want to pronounce her name, receiving Ramsey's favorite toy in a box, and Balon being like, "Well, I'm done. I've wiped my hands clean of my last son, who's not actually my son anymore, and Yara is now on a mission to go save her brother." So,
I feel like Balon went in this deep hole of despair, losing his other two sons, which were Theon's older brothers, and he pretty much gave Theon up for dead. Gotten this pessimistic attitude. They're going to have him this long. They're going to turn him into a what do they call him? A green. I can't remember. Anyways, the mainlanders is what I'll call them. I know they have a different word in the books, but um, that seemed like his biggest fear. And then this almost seems like a weight off of Balon's shoulders. Like I'd already given him up. Now it's kind of a nuisance to have him back. I didn't like what I saw, and it's just like, eh. But Yara's not having that. This is her little brother. They actually had a bond where I think Balon has just literally separated himself emotionally from Theon a long time ago, and it just never came back. Not saying it's right. I'm just saying that's how I see this because he doesn't. He doesn't really care about anything. You know, he builds Yara up, but he doesn't talk to her really nice. But he treats her like the son he never had, and that just what makes me think he just immediately gave Theon up and didn't even really get give any hope to getting him back ever.
Yeah, like Balon again is one of those worst father in Westeros contenders almost. And it just he's just like whatever. Yeah, like you said, he's just kind of given up, and Yara's like, I'm not giving up, and she's like, I'll take the 50 best killers on the Iron Fleet and the 50 best ships, uh, or something like that, and she's gonna bring Theon home. So, yeah, Balon Greyjoy, the winner of the War of the Five Kings, is so stupid. But yeah, it's a short scene, but yeah, it's like Theon's favorite toy is now brought home, and I'm surprised. Like that'd just be a crazy thing to just like look at you, be like, but yeah.
I guess fortunately they see, they rape and pillage. So I guess it wouldn't be the worst thing they've ever seen. It just has to hit home for it to be your family member. But this is a cold, hard world. I don't know. I couldn't imagine that either. I feel you on that. Oof, I don't feel you. Whatever. Anyways, fast forward.
Yeah. So the next scene that we have is again, um, hold on, if the thing will work. The next scene is Bran getting dragon glass. Them all just arming themselves dragon glass, and basically Bran goes, I'll be safe with these people, and I have to do what I have to do. But Sam's kind of reluctant to do it, but he does it anyway. And we get the Sam the Slayer recognition in this, which is kind of cool, especially from Mira. She's like, a White Walker hasn't been killed in thousands of years. So,
In 1,000 years. Yeah, I love it. Sam the Slayer. And it also has this trouble because he knows how John would feel about it. Sam knows John maybe better than almost anyone up until this point. John's kind of the only one he really mingled with and, got to know. And I feel like Sam's a very perceptive judge of character. How he acts upon it, I don't know, but he seems very perceptive as a judge of character, and he's far smarter than he lets on, especially in the books with how he gets John elected later as the Lord Commander. He does a little bit in the show, but in the books for sure. The Dragon Glass thing, I feel like nothing came from it that much, right? Didn't Mira kill one in the cave when they were leaving in the hold the door?
I think so.
And
Yeah,
that's about
it's
it,
not
right?
it's not very much them using it.
It's got to be more
Like
symbolism, huh?
you could kind of think that they maybe used it when they were off that entire of season 5. But yeah, they don't really use it. I think they only use it maybe once or twice. Um, yeah.
Do you think it'll come back where he has that on him and he has to become Hmm. Could that be plunged into his heart at the end? Does he still have that arrowhead or that dagger? That dragon glass dagger, right? Could that be something that's used in the end against him? That would be cool because it hasn't turned back up really, except the one Mira killed that I can think of. I
Yeah.
could be wrong. Yell at me in the comments.
Yeah, yeah, let's us too in the comments about that. But yeah, it's a I don't know, like they kind of like let it go after this about them
Let
using
it
dragon
go.
glass until like season 7 where they realized that dragon glass is important again, even though Sam already knew that. So it's like, huh? Um, but I don't know. It's a short scene, but yeah, you see Sam and Gilly um, know that they are potentially sending John's brother to on a suicide mission, but they have to do it because he wants to go do it. You can't stop him. And after this, we see Davos and Gendry have a conversation about Flea Bottom and basically who lived in the better neighborhood of
Gendry.
yeah,
Peter Steele.
who had the better place to live. If the visual references would want to work with me here.
He got to watch the knights gallivanting around on the Street of Steel while Davos played with turds in the little nooks and crannies and flipped on just they still had to eat the same bowl of brown. Davos is just really trying to relate to Gendry here, make him feel a little bit better, let him know that bastards can rise high in the world. People of low birth can rise up if they claw hard enough, if they work hard enough. Uh, and I feel like Davos is just trying to get to know Gendry here, to get to know the man that they're about to sacrifice. Davos is a person who can't let that go, you know. I feel like he's a lot like Ned. If someone's got to die, I need to look them in the eye and be able to still go through with it. If I can't, then they don't deserve to die. It's kind of how I feel with this scene, even though that's a rough translation. But
Yeah, yeah, it's them trying having a bond, which obviously establishes itself back up again in season 7. Um, but yeah, like Gendry talking about how he's never had a woman in his life before, and Melisandre basically strips in front of him and says all these big words. So who wouldn't get swept up into that? And yeah, it's just in that learning how to read came from Mathos, R.I.P. Mathos. Even though you lasted 1 season, um, you humble Davos's heart a little bit. Yeah, because it's another short scene, but it establishes something greater moving forward. Um,
it does. Does that mean Davos may be a type of father figure to Gendry later?
It kind of seems like it because we know Davos always has had an affiliation with the Baratheon family, because he's affiliated always with Stannis. So, um,
So you have the Baratheon line. You have what happened with Argilac the Arrogant and Oris taking the Baratheon name and or no, Baratheon sigil. Did he take the name too?
he might have taken the
Can't.
sigil,
I
but
know
there
he took
was
the crown, the stag.
stag with the crown on it. Yeah.
And could this? We had a Davos Baratheon in Fire and Blood. Lauren's Corners brought this up. We've talked about it. He had the Vulture Kings. Well, actually, I think it was either way. He had hands and feet tied up like onions on a string. And Davos was writing about this, about his father saying this. Davos could either be a secret secret Baratheon, or somehow end up being grandfathered into the Baratheon line, or maybe get Storm's End. I know everybody thinks Gendry's gonna get it, but what if Davos, the Onion Knight,
Yeah.
gets the Onion Storm?
And even though none of the three of them know it yet, Davos kind of unified for Jon a cousin that he never knew, in a sense. So it's funny how Davos has this weird connection to the two young men, and that he's kind of fostering, kind of as his like pseudo children, um, which is kind of funny how he takes care of Gendry and he takes care of Jon. So it's kind of cool to see the three of them in that relationship dynamic, especially kind of how he kind of sees his younger self and kind of the two in a lot of Gendry, but he can see a little bit of Stannis almost in Jon, in a sense. So it's kind of for him reliving younger years, maybe. Um, but yeah, the fact that Gendry is who he is, and he's not necessarily Stannis' child, but he is of Baratheon, may be important because Jon may have that whole thing of, well, and goes to Davos about Gendry. It's like, what should I do with him um, in the future? Because they kind of left out Storm's End in the show, which I'm kind of surprised about, but who knows? May come into the story in season 8.
Yeah. We'll see. They're gonna have to do a bunch of bringing stuff back. I think we'll be able to. Yeah, we might be able to figure it out in the later seasons when we get in there.
Yeah. So the next scene that we have is Shay talking to Varys about pretty much leaving the capital, and that she'll have a good life, with jewels and servants for herself, and that that she'll have jewels and all of the stuff that she wants in Pentos, and that she cannot marry Tyrion, because a High Lord's daughter marrying a person with one name doesn't work.
Yeah, I mean, right here too. It makes me wonder if Varys probably definitely heard when Tyrion asked her to leave, to kind of take hadn't he already kind of said he would take care of her if
I
she
think
wanted to go?
so. And I can't remember now. We've watched so many episodes back to back, I almost can't remember now.
I'm pretty sure that's why she immediately thinks it's Tyrion when Varys offers her this. He doesn't deny it too hard. You could say he kind of does, but she's just immediately outraged. Does she love Tyrion? That's what gets confusing here. Uh, I could say she may be in love with the thought of Tyrion and what King's Landing is, especially with how she described it herself when she got there, just how much she fell in love with the city. Uh, the fact that she's trying to be pushed away from the city that she's fell in love with so much. Because I don't think she's in love with Tyrion. You can tell me that all day, whatever. She's in love with that city. She's in love with the lifestyle, in my opinion.
Yeah. Raised up from nothing to sort of something. Yeah, you wouldn't want to stop that, if you had any chance of stopping it. And yeah, it's again where you see, Shay isn't like the person that she was in season 1, and how she thinks that Tyrion most definitely will do anything for her when he's already married. And she can't get it, like as Ben might have said, get it through her thick skull that life is different now that she's now, her lover is now married to the woman that she handmaids for, in a sense.
Drinking contest.
Yeah. So the drinking contest happened, and it's quickly ended by Cersei showing up, and she talks about pretty much married life and how without Joffrey or Talman or Marcella, that she would have flung herself from the Red Keep, and that Joffrey was a sweet baby when he was young.
What's stopping her now?
I don't
Ha,
know.
I'll let you rant on this one for a minute. I feel like I've been taking up all the breath
So,
time.
so you see, because we Pod is still kind of an underused character in this part of the season until obviously I think it's episode 3 or 4, when Brienne is given Oathkeeper and Pod is sent on his merry way. And with Brienne, so it's funny to kind of see him interact with Tyrion still and how their relationship is still working. And when Cersei shows up, she's like, "How are you enjoying married life?" And basically, she also says that a miserable wife is a wine merchant's best friend in terms of the husband, which I guess is kind of true. And Cersei continues to drink with Tyrion. And when she talks about how Joffrey was a miserable baby, but he was happy. He wasn't a miserable baby. That he was happy when he was with her. And still, she kind of questions like what went wrong. What did she potentially do to make him this way?
I said I was giving him drugs.
Yeah, happy drugs or something. And he even like she says about like that nothing can take that away from her, not even Joffrey. Those memories of him being sweet can never be taken away from her. And even Tyrion goes, how does that, like, how long does that go on, that feeling of having someone of your own? And she kind of infers that it never goes away, the the love of having someone that's your own, and um, the survival of the family and wanting the family to survive never goes away either.
Well, it also encapsulates why Cersei is the way she is with Joffrey and not more strong-handed. She is trying to hold on to what he was when he was good, and that's her firstborn son. The power of the firstborn as well. You have that, and that's kind of all she's had. She's had Jamie, yes, but she hasn't got to really have her true love. She had to deal with Robert this whole time. Now her son's grown when she's finally starting to become free, so she's just trying to hold on to him, and any relationship with him at this point is a good one for her. I don't think she's like consciously doing it, but I think it's just a subconscious drive to stay close to her firstborn child, which you see portrayed beautifully here.
Yeah, and for most societies and for most cultures, the firstborn son is the most important, especially since he is king. Um, but yeah, she can't let that him out of her clutches almost. And these two actors, especially together, they just do phenomenal scenes. Dinklage and Liam Heaney, they just do wonderful scenes together. Uh, only imagines what season 7 could be like if what we're all maybe thinking comes true or comes to pass in the end. Um, the the next scene we have is Arya and the Hound, and they come across men who are talking about how they sew Rob's head on, uh, sew the direwolf head on Rob's body, and she basically kills them. So here we get Arya's first real kill. Um, what
It's
do
a
you?
good one. It's one from the books that she did on a walkway while escaping Harrenhal. She drops the coin and stabs the dude in the neck while she's at Harrenhal, after the weasel soup and all that goodness. Uh, ooh, I really love this scene. Like every damn thing about it. Don't know why. Uh, but the guy was lying. Uh, the wolf's head wasn't sewn on the body. There was a stick put down the neck hole. I'm getting all gruesome here. And there was nothing sewn there. So he was lying, just like his friends alluded to. But they weren't awful guys, but they weren't nice guys either. They could have just said, "Oh, here's a girl, let's take her and rape her." It didn't. They just told her to fuck off. Um, but Arya, it's gonna be hard. Anybody in that situation would, yeah, let's kill the first fucking prey I can get my hands on, because you've taken everything from me. Like, I keep getting so close to this little bit of hope, and it keeps getting taken away from me. And the power of the "you murdered my family" shit. It's just, anyways, yeah. Here I go again.
And she drops the Bravosi coin, which is something she hasn't used in a while. Jaqen's coin, so it's kind of cool that she brings that up again. Yeah, but the first kill, and the Hound's like, "Where did you get the knife?" And she's like, "From you." And he's like, "Damn it!" He's like, "I better watch my weapons, better." And this scene after, because this is again a quick scene, the scene after this one is Jon being found by Egret, and she basically puts 2 arrows in it, or 3 arrows, sorry, in him, and she lets him get away, which is a thing that later on, I think in episode 1 of season 4, Tormund kind of questions her about, is the amount of arrows and how she shot him.
Did you see Jon had eagle eyes? Ha! Um, no, this is just well shot, pretty beautiful. If you paid attention back in season 2, when Egret took, is it season 2 when Egret took the elk from a vast
It was
distance?
it was a couple episodes ago.
Oh, it was a couple
I think
episodes ago.
it
See,
was
like years ago.
episode 7. I want to say.
Oh goodness, that close. Oh
Yeah,
wow.
it's well, we cover so many other things. It's fine. Yeah, because it's after it's when they find the windmill is when she shoots the deer or whatever. It's like right. It's she shoots the deer and then they go and see the windmill and she's like, "Is that a castle?" So anyway, I'm rambling now too. Go ahead.
No, I feel like she didn't want him to die, but that she thought it was possible, and she still has to do this, or else she'll die too. Like, to your point, what Tormund says later, it's just a very quick, touching scene. He's by the pool, he kind of remembering the cave a little bit, so um, he rides away, gallivanting, all joyous, feeling good, refreshed.
Mm-hmm.
Couple arrows, good to go. Shave, 3 arrows. Get a little breakfast. Let's get to the wall. Why he didn't run like Gendry? Because we know it's faster if you run. I'll never know.
I don't know. And yeah, the horse, like still has the horse with no saddle. So hashtag John rides bareback again. But it's touching because he admits that he loves her and he knows that she loves him. So it's touching, and it's their last scene together until the episode she dies. Spoiler alert. Um, but at this point, you should have already seen this episode. So yeah, it's the last. So they don't see each other for like almost a full year of television. Or in this timeline, so it's sad, but they but they're married in real life, so it's fine. Um, Bash and John just rides away with 3 arrows. So the scene after
Power of 3.
Power of 3. So the scene after this is the first time we see Maester Aemon in like 2 seasons, and it's Sam bringing Gilly and the newly named baby Sam to the wall, and Miss Draymond's like, you're not technically supposed to be here, but I can't send you back, so we're gonna write some letters. And
Baby Sam, the only baby we'll see in season 8. Boom! People are gonna blow up the comments with that.
mm-hmm. And like we were talking before recording this, baby Sam is the magical baby that's put in front of our faces, and it's been put in front of our faces the entire time. So, yeah. What did you think about seeing Maester Aemon again after literally 2 years of television, or 2 seasons of television?
Well, of course it was great, and the expression, I don't know, he thought Sam done had a baby. Uh, Sam, what are you doing? It's just kind of baffled. But then, once Sam told him what was going on, he just went right with it. And uh, something to always remember when Eamon's talking is he always knows when someone's lying. So that's why he's so quick to agree. Um, and I just love it. I love every scene that we have with Eamon. Gilly just presents herself how you would, timid. You don't know what's happening. This is a whole new world opening up for you, and with your baby too. It makes for a tough thing, and thank goodness she had Sam and Maester Aemon, because anybody else, even John, well, he wasn't even willing to protect her because he knows how almost impossible it is. So yeah, you could say Sam's more of a hero than John. Ooh, I'm joking. Don't kill me here. I
No,
love John.
well, John said he wanted to leave her because they obviously couldn't take her to the Fist of the First Men and beyond when they were on their mission. Obviously, if the situation was maybe different, like if they didn't have to go venturing beyond the wall, maybe the situation with John would have been different. Um, but yeah, it's kind of it is a sweet scene to see Peter Vaughn, who is the actor who played Maester Aemon again. Now that he had passed away, I think they retired his character the season before actually he had passed away, meaning that they had killed him off due to natural causes. But it's funny to see him again, especially like with how much wisdom he holds and how old this character actually is. And uh, she says that when Gilly says that her name is Gilly, he says, "Oh, for the Gilly flower," and his like smile with that is so cool. And when she says that the baby's name is Sam, that is like you said, it kind of has the alarm bells off of, is this actually? And he's like, no, I remember every word of the oath. And when he says, I hope your penmanship is better than your writing, he says, my penmanship is miles better. So we know that Sam writes like 44 letters or 45 letters to all the different kingdoms and the lords of Westeros. Like, that's a lot. So repeating the same thing, it's it's a it's a lot. But Aemon's kind of gives Sam the challenge, and he willingly accepts it. So yeah, it's
Sam got strong hands. He's like, yeah, I'll gladly write some stuff after seeing all the shit I've seen. Yeah, let me sit down right here by the fire and write some shit up. I'll be much obliged, Meister Eamon. Meister.
nice.
Meister.
And yeah, go ahead.
I was just messing around. Sorry, making it unprofessional as hell. Just go ahead and keep going. Ignore me.
So the next scene that we have is Davos reading the letters that Stannis needs to be reading or understanding what's been said in those letters. And Shireen is also trying to push Davos to read about Visenya and Rhaenys. And it's funny how he says, "Why is there a G in night?" Which is, I bet, for a whole bunch of people when they're really learning how to read, is a common question. Still, probably to this day, we probably ask, "Why is there a G in night?" But he reads that the Night's Watch implores those lords of Westeros to rally behind the Night's Watch, even though he doesn't use this information until the next scene that they have. But yeah, what do you think about Shireen reading Visenya, reading about Visenya and teaching Davos about Visenya?
The Dowager Queen. It's interesting. It depends how much parallels you want to draw. Visenya was more of a fighter. I feel like if you wanted to, you could mix Visenya and Rhaenys to make Dany in a way. But then if you think about Rhaenys, she was a lot like Dany, kind of the people, but she died bringing fire and blood to Dorne. It's hard to say. I mean, yeah, Visenya did kind of anything to keep her brother on the throne and also keep herself in line and the Targaryens in power. A lot how Tywin is with the name and how Cersei starts to get with the name. I feel like Visenya was, in my opinion. But she gets a little dark later. I don't know. As far as reading, I'm getting on a Visenya tangent. As far as reading, it's I don't know, a great parallel. And Shireen's just so cute, and Davos learning to read's cute as well. Nugget, oh, that's Night. And he gets this mysterious letter from Castle Black, and it's basically what Sam wrote earlier, right? Telling of what Sam saw, how he killed a White Walker, and like I was telling you earlier, is Davos the only person in the Seven Kingdoms to believe anything Sam wrote? Because everyone else kind of dismisses it, or, oh, we got bigger problems than some mythical army of the dead coming. Bitch, you better get.
I feel like Davos is the first person to read what Sam writes, even though it's not signed by Sam. It's the first person to believe what Sam writes, because John just automatically believes everything that Sam says, pretty much. But it's the first kind of external character, if you want to call it that, that's not like knows who Sam is, that believes it.
Well, I mean, yeah, even like Tyrion kind of believed it earlier a little bit. You know, maybe we should send some people up there. No, I don't believe there's really this stuff, but they do need people at the wall because of Mance Rayder. And yeah, nobody really in the Seven Kingdoms pays it much mind. We hear later Cersei talking about how she had got the letter right, and that it's not really prudent. The North and their superstitions or something.
Yeah.
And it's really funny how they just easily put them aside when all you got to do is read a history book and know that. I mean, what do you think these guys are doing? They just want people up there for their slaves. It makes no sense because people, if they're asking you for people, they probably need people. It's not as if they're asking you for knights or anything. They're asking you for prisoners. And we have scenes where Dany does this, Cersei does this. They don't send them to the Night's Watch just because Randall Tarley said, "You're not my queen," doesn't mean she still couldn't have sent him to the Night's Watch. She still could have said, "Okay, put him in shackles, send him to the Night's Watch." It doesn't matter that he's said that. But you get into the semantics and later how malleable you have to be with people. That gets into the next episode with a little bit of Dario wisdom from Dario's new beard. But we'll get into that later. Sorry, I'm just ranting today.
No, it's okay. The next, this is connected. So the bells have tolled on Dragonstone, and it's revealed that Dragonstone has now received the news about Rob's death, and that Davos says uniting the Seven Kingdoms with blood magic is wrong, and Mel doesn't actually give two shits. And she says that a drop of blood killed Robb Stark, but what would an entire person do for Stannis's cause? And basically, Davos afterwards saves Gendry from the dungeons and sends him on his merry little way to keep the shore on the left, which, if you think about it, it just means he's just going in circles. Um,
Well, he would stay with one side of the shore. It just depends on the shape of the land, I guess. Um, yeah, I don't. If he's going to the left,
and
because he's leaving Dragonstone, yeah, he'll just go around the island. Um, yeah, it's more of a kind of keep land in sight to keep your bearings, since he doesn't know anything about the sea. But maybe that could have been a small slip up. It's still funny. Um, I will give a short little tangent on this, so you can talk some on your own show. Uh, See, the leech worked. Um, Kill him. We don't need him. Oh wait, yeah, maybe we do need him. Okay, don't kill him. Ah, see, my God is all powerful and need you. What do you think of the irony? I think that's just weird timing, Melisandre and Stannis. No, it was a little blank. It's hard to watch how fervently Stannis believes the leech killed Robb Stark. Um, Other than that, makes you wonder what Mel saw and why she needs Davos for later. Does this have to do with bringing John back? I know she didn't see that in the flames, but is that why R'hllor told her to keep him? If there is a R'hllor, I have no idea. It's so conflated at this point. In the books, I believe there's a R'hllor. It seems a little more tangible, but whatever. Go ahead.
yeah, yeah, it's just the fact that Davos is that uniting kingdoms with blood magic is wrong. Well, it's like John is kind of raised by was raised from the dead by essentially blood magic. Danish dragons are made from blood magic, so it's kind of it's a funny, tricky situation that Davos kind of has himself involved with, but who knows? The scene after this one is just a quick scene where John has now made it back to the Night's Watch with his injuries that he sustained. We see John see Sam and Pip again, and because it's the first time we've seen another person in about 2 seasons, being Pip.
Pipar.
Yeah, and
Poor horse.
the horse having to run off afterwards. But yeah, the Pip, because we know that Gren and Ed are still at Crassers, so it's and he's like, "Can you see us?" And then he says, "Pip, Sam," and he's like, "Gently, like lift him up," and they just go fast. They just like boost him up very fast. So yeah,
Don't worry, I'll take care of you, John.
mm-hmm. They like
It
take
is a
care
real
of
sweet
the
thing.
BFF. Yeah, because like Sam says in later seasons, John always comes back. So yeah,
Yeah, he does. Yeah, I think he pulled a more dramatic entrance than Gendry did. But
yeah, yeah. That's the and now he has to take care of all the arrows with Maester Raven.
good thing they aren't Dragon Glass. They would have accidentally turned him into the Night King.
Yeah. um, the next scene we see is Jamie and Brienne and Qyburn arrive in King's Landing, and basically Jamie has recognized by 0 people, and yeah, it's not the homecoming that he expects.
Feels what it's like to be invisible. I'll let you take it for a little bit.
Yeah, and this is kind of funny that probably one of the most for the last 2 seasons, pretty much Jamie's been one of the most recognizable characters on his journey down. so that when he reaches King's Landing, the person that he kind of bumps into doesn't even recognize him. Maybe it's because he's not clean shaven and he has long hair and no right hand. Um, but the fact that no one recognizes him and he's able to get all the way up into the Red Keep, um, in the next um episode, like the next part of this scene, is kind of funny. How when Cersei sees him, she's just like taken aback by it. It's not the way she kind of expected to see him when he came back. Um, yeah, because he goes, Cersei, and then she turns around and she sees him how he is, and it's kind of a shock for her. Um, yeah, that the person and the man that she loves is now has a disability in a sense.
Oh, well, I mean, he's too late anyway. Lancel's taking care of her. Both of the, what are the twins' names in the books? I can't
Left and
remember.
right.
No, it's the other ones. Are they brothers? They're not twins. My gosh. I
Oh,
can't remember. I don't know. It's on the tip of my tongue.
it's
For
okay.
some reason. But yeah, Jamie's just kind of flea ridden. In the books, I think his hair is almost cut completely off. Show wise, I mean, she says it right there. She's kind of moved on. She pulled a Balon Greyjoy and kind of just figured Jamie dead. She doesn't seem to long for him that much anymore. Uh, and like you said, she's not really that happy to see him back. It's very lackluster and has to feel awful for Jamie. That's got to be one of the worst feelings in the world. And just to be kind of left on, you're too late. What the hell does that mean?
Hmm.
Cold blooded.
Yeah, I don't think she says the too late thing here, but I think she says it next episode.
Oh, is
Um,
that later? See,
yeah, it's when he gets
it's your
his
fault.
golden hand. Sorry, we watched this back to back because we have to get these out. We're recording these back to back. But yeah, the fact because she doesn't say anything, she just looks and stares at him after he just says simply Cersei. So yeah, it's not what she expected. But I'm surprised because she's a twin, and you usually think, as close as these twins are, that she would have maybe felt something when it happened to him. Um, Even though they're fraternal twins, that she would have at least tried to feel something, because there's all those things with twins, and if one twin feels something, the other one usually feels it. Um, Davos is basically reprimanded for letting Gendry go, and but this is where he pulls out his trump card, which is, I have this letter from the Night's Watch. You better read it. It's important. And you and I paid very close attention to what they were saying in terms of the language that they were using in this um, scene, and which nouns actually were being used with he or it or she and all that. So, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, gonna need him to defeat him. Like it wasn't an it was a him. Like she has seen this in the book. She calls it the Great Other the one time, but she kind of uh, call mistakes, maybe mistakes, Bran and maybe Blood Raven for the Great Other. In this, you notice the hymn, so you're gonna get the whole Night King theme, I guess. Um, he is this other god, I'm assuming, which maybe she'll elaborate more on in season 8 for everyone else. Uh, but it's just the opposite of fire, which you would think is ice. Um, has to be R'hllor's enemy, and goes back to dragons. How much R'hllor is related to dragons. I know that they think dragons are fire mage flesh and gods, almost like it's hard to say. Oh man, I'm just getting on a weird tangent here, but yeah, it does foreshadow him as being the Night King. It doesn't say it, they, to defeat it. You know, that's what you would think, but it does a specific him. Even Davos says him. You'll need me to defeat him. Uh, I just thought that interesting. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, Mel, she sees something in the fire, and but it's what does she see at this point is the big question. Um,
Yeah, she throws the paper in there too, if that has anything to do with it, her seeing what she saw. Maybe the message written from the hand that's seen it. She sees it through the fire, thus, whatever. I'm not going to take it down that wormhole, but yeah.
who knows? There may be something. Because it was written at the wall. Who knows? Maybe the written word and where it's written gives some sort of connotations. Who knows? Put your tinfoil on for that part of that thought process. Um, the last scene.
You could also argue that Bran's sending her message to get her there, because they'll
Very
need
true.
her to defeat the Night King, but that's when you get in the circle of what is
The
lore. We'll talk about it later, though.
Yeah,
Sorry.
you get into that time circle and time warp and all these timelines being played. But the last scene, we've reached the last scene of this episode, and this is where we get why this episode is called Misa. So basically, Danny is standing outside of Yunkai, and now that the city has been liberated, the people come outside the gates, and then they start to call her Misa, which in, I guess, Valyrian means mother, and she's lifted off the ground while the dragons fly high, and that's how we end season 3. So, what do you feel about Danny and pretty much them showing how she's the white person in this scene? Um, the white person coming to save them all.
I don't know how much I can actually touch on that. I can say that she goes on this tangent about how you have a choice. Later, she kind of falls back on that. It's a very complex situation that Danny's thrust herself in. It's a culture and a place that she's not familiar with. She has these people looking up to her, yet she has no idea how to deal with them because she doesn't know how these people live. Everywhere you see, these people have a different culture, a different way of living, just like in life. And things you do in your normal life in another country may be considered insulting, or many different mistranslations can happen here. And she's accepting this role of mother and being bowed to, which is something you could argue that it takes a bit of narcissism to accept this and not say no, don't bow to me, don't do this, you are free, you know. But she kind of embraces this feeling of power. Now, can you say she deserves this after all she's been through? Hell yeah. uh, but right here is one of these moments where she's trying to do the right thing, she wants to lead, right? But she thinks what she thinks is best for everyone, if that makes any sense. Uh, that's just her way of thinking, especially at this moment. That, well, you know, what I want is best for everyone. She's still not highly adaptable, and then the next episode they kind of touch on that a little bit, that she needs to fit in with the culture a little more. I, I don't know. It's just a little stage dive, I guess. It does feel kind of off. Um, but all in all, I guess it is a pretty good scene. I just don't know if they had to do everything they did with it. Now, the one thing I can say is at the end, it kind of spirals and looks like the Night King symbol where he was turned at the weirwood and all of that. Whether that has any connotation, I know people have said maybe Dany will be the Night Queen. Maybe she's Nisa Nisa. She could be Azor Ahai, given the whole Prince translation. But with that, it was a decent episode, and I think maybe they could have conveyed that a little more. I don't think she had to go get a stage dive, but her walking in the crowd may have just been enough. But hey, they went over the top. This is HBO, and I'll just rant for 45 minutes. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. No, it's a good scene. It shows her power. It shows how kind of there is that whole historical tone of someone of her, maybe her coloring, is there to liberate these people, especially after being an entire city of slaves. Uh, so they kind of respect her and love her in a sense, even though she did say that they're free people, that they have their own freedom. They kind of don't, because you didn't kill all the slave masters in Yunkai, so it's kind of hard um, to figure that out. But what can you do? It's to show a powerful moment for her, meaning that all of these people love and adore her, and gotta have the obligatory shot of the dragons, and that's how we end season 3. And that's we also in this scene see how we leave them off in season 3, the dragons, and how big they get over the next couple seasons. Um, so what is your rating for this episode? And I guess since we didn't really do this before, what would you rate the entire of season 3? Because I think this is one of your favorite seasons.
Oh yeah, entirety of season 3 is a 9.5. You have everything from the Red Wedding to Arya and Harrenhal, Arya with Beric Dondarrion, the Hound and Beric Dondarrion, Arya and the Red Woman, uh, Arya and the Hound, Arya, just everything Arya. Then you have some of my favorite Dany scenes, her conquering cities without dragons, basically. Yeah, she used one in Astapor, but that was more of a manipulation than actual the dragon winning. She set him up with that piece. So beautiful, beautiful. She tends to slack off a little more. We also have just some great scenes with Cersei, Tyrion, the Blackwater, everything after Blackwater. Just fantastic. The dynamic between him and Tywin, him and Cersei. I can't say enough about this season. This probably is my favorite season of all. And it's got 8.5 hollering Hodors. That's how I get this episode.
Oh, awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, I'd give this episode 8.75. What did I write? Oh yeah, 8.75 token white privilege scenes. Even though it's slightly racially charged, it's what it is here. And the entire season, I would give this a 9.25 murders of thousands, because there's a lot of murder that happens in this season, and it's it's a really good season overall. Yeah, so can't wait to talk about season 4, and what all goes in that season, because we get another wedding that season. So where do you want to where do you want the people to know where to find you?
Find me at thestrangler.com. No, just kidding. Johnny be crazy. Come check it out. We do Fire and Blood every week. Probably be Saturday this weekend. Also Episode Club. Cylon John's on Fridays. And we'll be having a new series about They Deserved It. All the characters who deserve to die in Game of Thrones. We'll have another cat fight with Peter Baelish. Another cat fight with Cersei Lannister. You'll find me everywhere doing nothing and everything at the same time. I just want to thank you for having me on, Sasa. It's always fun and a pleasure. Yeah, and that's about it. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Yeah.
No problem at all. This was a great episode, and it's a great end to a really good season. And next, well, you can obviously find me here on my channel, on John's channel, or on Cylon John. Next, which is going to be another podcast, we'll be talking about season 4, episode 1, Two Swords. It's the big one before Joffrey's murder. And yeah, it's a good episode. That'll be podcast style. So on Wednesday, which will be 2 days from now, we will be talking The Purple Wedding live with Clarissa Thompson and maybe someone else. But yeah, we'll have that episode go down. And then we are literally going full steam ahead. So we're going to be doing 402 and then 406 as live streams. So yeah, we will see you all then in the next one. Bye, everyone.